Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got two Smith and Wesson 9mm. I've got the Equalizer and the Shield EZ. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. When the Shield EZ originally came out, it kind of broke some ground. It brought the ability for people with compromised hand strength to be able to have a micro compact. Now, it's not the smallest of the micro compacts, but it's a lot smaller than guns that typically were out there that had a light slide. It came at a kind of a noticeable compromise, however. It came with an 8-round limit. It had these single stack magazines. Now, they've got these little things on them for you to grab with your thumb to make it easy to load, and single stacks in general are fairly easy to load, so of course you have a magazine that is relatively easy to load. But notice how easy the slide is to operate. So that was really what the Shield EZ9 and the EZ380 brought to the table, is if you've got compromised hand strength, you've got a gun with basically a 3-finger grip with the flush mag in it. You've got basically a 3-finger grip. It's easy to get a hold of. You do have this grip safety, but it disappears very quickly and easily. Even the loosest grip I've grabbed on this, if I had a hold of the gun well enough to hold it while it fired, I had a hold of it well enough for the grip safety to disengage properly and work. Came with nice sights, 3-dot sights that were replaceable. No optics capability. And the EZ series comes in a number of variations. There's performance center variations, there's with and without thumb safety, and several other different variations. There's even a 30 super carry version of this. And the MSRP on these goes between $521 to $643, depending on how fancy you want it. You know, night sights or the performance center kind of gets to the higher end of that. But they're reasonably priced. So this is really the original from Smith and Wesson for people with compromised hand strength. And others out there on the market, like the PK380, are larger and similar capacity limitations, and of course the PK380 is a 380. So you could kind of think of this as like an EZ rack shield. That's the Shield EZ. And just like what happened to the Shield when the Shield Plus came out, the Equalizer came out. And yeah, I know the name gets a lot of hate, but it kind of does equalize the field because it brings that high capacity micro compact to those with compromised hand strength. Now, this particular magazine in my hand only holds 10 rounds, but that's 2 more than the Shield. But I've also got this one over here that holds 13, and I've got this one over here that holds 15. And if you've had any contact with the Shield Plus, or if you've seen Shield Plus videos, you might recognize these magazines. You might look at them and say, these look a lot like Shield Plus magazines. And you'd be right, because they are. And that's one of the nice things about it. This is a new gun that came out not too long ago, and magazine availability is already there because it's just Shield EZ magazines. There's actually Shield Plus. They're Shield Plus magazines with no changes, no modifications. They work right out of the box. So when Smith and Wesson released the Equalizer, kind of like when they came out with the Shield Plus, almost made the Shield obsolete, I would hazard that the Equalizer has probably made the EZ obsolete, at least in the 9mm territory. Now, one thing you did lose is that these they don't have the little tang. They are double stacked. They're a little bit harder to load. So they solved that. They put an up-lula in the box. And the up-lula is a loading device that allows you to use your whole hand and your whole fist to load a magazine. And it almost doesn't matter how compromised your hands are. If you can make a fist, you can hold on to an up-lula and you can load a magazine. And thinking about that, they just include one with it. So that problem of losing that tang is solved. Dimensionally, they're similar. You might think the Equalizer without extra capacity is bigger, and actually the opposite is true. So the original Shield EZ is 6.78 inches long, Equalizer is 6.75. Now, is that landmark difference? No, but it's smaller rather than bigger for more capacity. From a height perspective, the Equalizer, put the flush mags in them, Equalizer is shorter, noticeably shorter. It's 4.5 instead of 4.98. And that you might think, well, how can you make it shorter and have more capacity? Well, when you go to a double stack, you're putting the rounds side by side, kind of offset. So they needed more width for the magazine, but they could actually lose height. And you might wonder, well, you just told me they were about the same width. They're both 1.04. If you're looking at the one, if I find the magazine release, if you're looking with the one without the thumb safety. But if I pull the magazines out, what you'll see is there's a difference in the wall thickness of the grip. So they have thinned out the walls of the grip to make room for that slightly wider magazine in the same overall outside dimensions. So it's almost the same casting, just thicker walls on the original EZ. That does not make it weaker. It's actually quite rigid. The materials, these nylon materials that they're making these pistol frames out of at this point, the technology has evolved that they're actually very strong with a relatively thin wall. And that's really one of the things that's enabled the whole high-capacity micro-compact territory, is the fact they can make the walls thinner, put a double stack or a double stack and a half magazine in them, get that capacity that previously you couldn't because you either thought you had to have real thick walls, or with the earlier materials you actually did have to have real thick walls. So you actually got a gun with noticeably more capacity in a little bit less space. Even weight, getting rid of some of that wall thickness, even with a slightly larger magazine, knocked 0.1 ounces off. Again, not huge, but you would normally think more capacity is going to be bigger and heavier. So 23 or 22.9 ounces for the Equalizer and 23 flat for the Shield EZ9. So every single thing is smaller and better, and capacity is larger. Functionally, they both worked reliably. They both have the grip safeties. They both seem to work about the same. I'm almost guaranteed that this mechanism is the same mechanism. They're a light rack. Both of them have very easy to cycle slides, but you'll notice the Equalizer has an optics plate on it. There's only 2 variants of this currently available, with and without thumb safety, and both are optics ready. There's numerous versions of this available with and without thumb safety. None of them are optics ready. And my suspicion is they'll probably never upgrade the original Shield EZ line to add optics, because just like with the Shield Plus, I think the Equalizer is going to make the original Shield EZ obsolete. Why would I buy this? Because it's got no advantage over the Equalizer, unless of course you hate the name. There seems to be a lot of hating on the name, but other than that, the Equalizer beats it in every respect. It proved to be just as reliable when we were shooting it, just as easy to keep on target. The triggers are just as nice. So almost no take up. A short, light, but nice crisp break. Resets all the way out with a little bit of a take up to get back on the wall, but all the way out's not all that far. And now if I go to the Shield EZ, what you're going to find, the trigger's the same. A little bit of take up, nice short crisp wall. The reset all the way out, a little bit of take up to get back on the wall, and then a nice short crisp break. So when they went to the Equalizer, really all they did is add positives. They didn't really add any negatives. You've got really deep front and rear serrations, and this is one I would actually say is a bigger positive. The little wings have been retained, so you can see them stick out here, and that's to get your fingers on. And you have that on the original EZ as well, or on the Shield EZ. But I would say that these deep serrations front and rear are probably a little easier to get a hold of than the fish scale at the back and those tiny microscopic ones at the front for somebody with compromised hand strength. So not only does it have better capacity, but it actually does what the original intent of this gun was. It does that better as well. So overall, I think they got a win with this. Both variations of the Equalizer come in at $599, which is kind of in the middle of the line of the Shield EZ pricing. So you can get the basic Shield EZ, like you see here, for a little bit less, about $70 less. But to go to the Equalizer, pick up a uplula. And by the way, that uplula is just a standard uplula. It's not customized for Smith and Wesson. It's not modified to only work with their magazines. So it'll work with any double stack magazine you've got. So you're actually picking up just a regular uplula, which they're about $40 to $50 depending on where you pick them up. And that alone might be worth the price difference, especially if you don't already have one. So we did put the Equalizer in our top 5, and a lot of the reasons I went over here is why it slotted into the top 5, and while the Shield EZ9 didn't get into that type of list. It might have been, had the Equalizer not come out when we did that video, the Shield EZ would have had a chance. But once the Equalizer came out, again, just like the Shield and the Shield Plus, it's kind of a no-brainer to go this direction. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, click that link if you subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Getter, Rumble, pretty much everywhere. And thank you.
But you're good, just allow me this time to keep everything, okay?